There's this one Miyamoto quote from a 2015 Game Informer interview that's lived rent-free in my head ever since I heard it. The context is that the interviewer asked about the common joke of Mario and Peach playing sports with their enemy, and in response, Miyamoto has this to say. If you're familiar with things like Popeye and some of the old comic characters, you would oftentimes see this cast of characters that takes on different roles depending on the comic or the cartoon. They might be a businessman in one cartoon or a pirate in another. Depending on the story that was being told, they would change roles. So to a certain degree, I look at our characters in a similar way and feel they can take on different roles in different games. It's more like they're one big family, or maybe a troupe of actors. This quote sticks out to me not just because it gives me ammunition to point and laugh at anyone who seriously cares about the Mario lore, but because it's just the perfect way to sum up Mario characters. They're not meant to be complex characters with deep lore, they're simplistic archetypes that can fit in any situation. But an unintended side effect of this character philosophy is that Mario characters are perfectly suited for meme culture because memes themselves are simplistic archetypes that can fit any situation. Ouija, Expandong, the Wario apparition, I could list more, but you get the point. However, within this intersection between Mario characters and meme culture, there's one character whose relationship with meme culture has become inseparable. A character who is basically the mascot of over-the-top Mario shitposts. A character who is... Okay, I'm not gonna drag this on for any longer, it's Waluigi. Waluigi's first appearance was in Mario Tennis for the N64. Since the game had a 2v2 mode, it was decided that Wario needed a partner, so he got one in the form of a rival to Luigi.
I mean, a rival to Luigi is just any decent human being. Luigi's a menace to society and also clubs baby seals.
Also, in the process of doing research for this video, I found out that around the release of Mario Tennis, Nintendo Power Magazine made up a fake game called Waluigi's Toenail Clipping Party, so do whatever you want with that information. From there, Waluigi was added to the Game Boy version of Mario Tennis, served as the main antagonist of Mario Party 3, and eventually became a mainstay in Mario spin-offs. And with all the talk of archetypes in this video's introduction, it only makes sense to specify the one Waluigi represents, the goofy trickster. No matter what game he's in, Waluigi's overall mannerisms are just really goofy in a charming way, although his exact type of goofiness varies from game to game. There's the intros to the Camelot sports games where he and Wario take part in a bunch of cartoony slapstick shenanigans. There's Strikers games where he does a crotch chop, a hand motion popularized by wrestling group G-Generation X that's used for telling people to stock a certain bodily organ. There's Mario Party 8 where he pulls out a rose in one animation and it's just kinda stuck, appearing in several games after that. And there's some games where he just inexplicably has the ability to swim through air. Finally, there's Citizen Kane of Mario Kart and an overall critically acclaimed cinematic masterpiece, Waluigi Pinball. Not only is it a unique idea for a Mario Kart track with a music track that's an absolute banger in every version, but it also does a really good job at characterizing Waluigi. I'll link a video by Zoomzyke that goes more in depth, but TLDR, the track is presented in such a way where you can reasonably believe Waluigi is rigging it to get an edge on the competition. So with all these antics combined, it's no surprise that Waluigi has his share of fans. But there's just one more thing that Waluigi needs to ascend to meme status, and that one thing is his role as an underdog. The year is 2011. The 3DS's launch was a historical failure for Nintendo, but there was a shining beacon of hope in the form of a new Mario Kart. This was a chance to redeem the 3DS and set Nintendo back on track. Unfortunately, there was a big problem with this new Mario Kart. Waluigi was axed from the roster, and adding insult to injury is the fact that his own course, Waluigi Pinball, was still in the game. Truly, this was an egregious case of the bourgeoisie taking advantage of the proletariat flavor while neglecting the actual worker, eating the orange and throwing the peel away. Yeah, this was just the inevitable fate of Waluigi. He has never appeared in a mainline Mario game, and unlike characters like Wario and Donkey Kong, he doesn't even have his own series. To the higher-ups at Nintendo, Waluigi only exists to fill out the rosters of spin-offs and is ultimately disposable. Of course, he was back to the spin-offs after the public outcry of his egregious mistreatment in Mario Kart 7, but how long will it last? Waluigi will always be under the risk of getting unjustly thrown out of Mario Kart like Donkey Kong Jr., Diddy Kong, Petey Piranha, and Birdo before him. But this status as a character exclusively relegated to spin-offs is what ultimately draws even more people to Waluigi. He's an underdog that you just can't help but root for, and the very definition of an ensemble dark horse. You just want to see him succeed beyond the small role that Nintendo has carved out for him. You just know that he's capable of so much more. On April 1st, 2005, an image titled Waluigi and Super Mario 64 DS was uploaded to DeviantArt by a user with the handle King Bowser Koopa. The post showed various images of Waluigi playable in the game, with a big hint that he could be unlocked by getting all the power stars, becoming the fastest foot racer in all the land, and accepting a challenge from the Rabbit King. This image is obviously an April Fool's joke, and Bowser Koopa even had his description edited to clarify it as such, after getting one too many annoying comments. But what the Mario 64 DS image and the people following for it both show is that there's a genuine demand for Waluigi to appear in a mainline Mario game, or dare I say, his own game. Charles Martinet, the voice actor of various characters such as Waluigi himself and also some obscure character you've never heard of, even commented on his demand. In a pre-release gathering for Super Mario Galaxy 2, Martinet is quoted as saying, "I'd love to see a Waluigi game where you have to cheat to win, you know? That would be funny." However, this is 12 years ago and Nintendo still hasn't made a Waluigi game. Personally, I don't think an official Waluigi game is something that will ever happen anytime soon. It just seems like something the higher-ups at Nintendo would see as a risk in terms of sales. Also, I could probably see Nintendo's PR team thinking that a game where the main character cheats to win would be bad for the brand, but that's okay. If Nintendo can't make a Waluigi game, then the fans will.
Nintendo, hire this man. Nintendo, hire this man.
There's 3 Waluigi-centered fan games that I think are notable enough to talk about. First, there's Psycho Waluigi, a 2D platformer where Waluigi gains psychic powers and tries to conquer several continents. It's the only of the 3 games I'm talking about that I actually decided to play, and it's pretty fun, albeit nothing special as far as 2D platformers are concerned. Still, it's really impressive for a fan game released in 2011, and it's only 3 hours long, so it's not like it'll take up much of your time. The second fan game that's worth talking about is Wario x Waluigi, a game where you have to make Wario and Waluigi kiss each other while avoiding a police officer Toad. If you fail, Wario and Waluigi get hung from the gallows. I have no comment on this, I am just trying to mentally process the fact that this is a thing that exists. And last but certainly not least is Waluigi's Taco Stand, which actually has quite the history. The general consensus is that the first mention of the game was around 2002-ish, but said first mention has been lost to time. The earliest surviving mention of the game was in June of 2006, where a Smashboards user was discussing how they think Waluigi should have his own game. Another user then mentioned how someone on GameFAQs suggested Waluigi's Taco Stand as a game concept. In 2012, someone used this concept to create a fart fetish fanfiction for some reason. This fanfiction comes from someone who's fairly infamous in fanfiction circles, and I'm going to specifically avoid mentioning their name because based on other stuff they've done, I don't want to give them a platform. But hey, at least this is somehow only the second most cursed fanfiction that involves tacos. However, in the tail end of 2016, the Waluigi's Taco Stand joke would reach new heights when it was picked up by Gunner, a collaborative YouTube channel where fans would submit parodies of video game OCs and have them be featured. Considering other cursing and the stuff that has been referenced on the channel, it's likely that Gunner picking up the Waluigi's Taco Stand joke was done as a joke on the aforementioned cursed fanfiction. There were 2 Waluigi's Taco Stand rips published to the Gunner channel created by 2 different users. A mock-up of an opening cutscene for this theoretical game that also uses slurs because 2016 edginess, and a theoretical main theme for the game. I'm going to focus on the latter rip primarily because it blew up in popularity, gaining 1.2 million views and becoming the 31st most viewed video on the Gunner channel as of scripting. It's a mariachi-style remix of the shot theme from Ocarina of Time with 2 out-of-sync harmonicas and a vocal portion in the second half. And when combined with the really well-done logo and the Waluigi render for the game, there's just something mesmerizing about it. It really makes you wish it was a real game. Well, in 2018, that wish would come true as a prolific Mario 64 hacker Kaze Emanuar would make the game a reality. Waluigi's Taco Stand is a hack of Mario 64 where Waluigi works at a taco stand and has to collect the ingredients that his customers ask for. The game is short, with a long play of it being less than 20 minutes, but the history behind it is still interesting. Kaze even honed into this idea of Waluigi's Taco Stand being some lost game by making a reveal video for it in the style of an N64 game commercial and an unboxing video for a modded cartridge which he would sell on eBay. He went with the angle of this being the only cartridge for the game in existence, but eventually people realized they could just mod the cartridges themselves to the point where I found at least one case of a retro game store selling one of these cartridges. And while there's plenty of other Waluigi fan games, these are the 3 that I found the most notable. possible. However, while fan games are the most natural choice for Waluigi fan works, there's other fan works that translate into other mediums. Let's start with one that's important for shaping Waluigi's online characterization, his Brawl in the Family interpretation. Brawl in the Family is a Nintendo/Super Smash Bros. Themed webcomic that ran from 2008 to 2014. It's what you'd expect from both the games it's focused on and the time period it ran in, family-friendly, gag-focused gamer humor. And while it's easy to go, lol, this is cringe, at something not made for the most mature of audiences, I'll say full well that I have fond memories of rushing through the comics backlog when I was around 12 or 13 and then checking for new updates every day until its eventual end. But some of the comic's biggest highlights were its April Fool's events, featuring the Purple Guy himself. On April 1st, 2009, Waluigi took over the comic, and scrolling down would reveal 17 crudely drawn Waluigi-themed comics, which amplify his unappealing factors and were just completely unhinged in the best way possible. There's a bunch of them that focus on anti-humor, one where Waluigi eats a baby, and most importantly, the Too Bad Waluigi Time comic, which would go on to become a meme in its own right and propel that four-word phrase to becoming indistinguishable from Waluigi's online presence. In the 2010 April Fool's comic, Waluigi pretends to be Nintendo of America and sends a cease and desist letter to the comic, a joke that has only gotten funnier 12 years after the fact. My favorite part of this April Fool's joke was that it seemed to hint at an upcoming comic with excess gore, foul language, and frightening imagery, among other things. And when that game actually came out, it turned out that the excess gore was Al Gore, that the foul language was foul as in ducks, and that acknowledging the existence of Persona 4 is the most truly frightening imagery of all time. While I won't go over every April Fool's comic in excruciating detail, suffice it to say that they all involve this weird alternative characterization of Waluigi in some way. And even after the comic's end, its creator Matthew Toronto would keep the Waluigi spirit alive. On his YouTube channel, you can find several covers of songs in a Waluigi impression, most notably Bohemian Rhapsody and Toto Africa. But Toronto wasn't the only person to think of putting a musical twist on Waluigi. The YouTuber Soranova would make a Waluigi version of Jeff Buckley's It's a Cold and Broken Hallelujah, and it's as ridiculous and over the top as it sounds.
The baffled king composes
Waluigi, yeah. Waluigi, 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 Waluigi.
Enough of all these trivialities though, because it's time to talk about a truly revolutionary work of political theory. Critical perspectives on Waluigi. This masterpiece delivers all the deep Waluigi analysis you could ever hope for, with three authors looking at him through three different perspectives. The first is the postmodern analysis, which relates how Waluigi's existence revolves around three other characters to how individual identities are tied to brands in modern capitalist society. The second is a queer analysis, which details how Waluigi rejects the facade of the Mushroom Kingdom to become a truly liberated individual. And the third is a Marxist analysis, which focuses on how a character with no reason to exist beyond making sports game rosters bigger is the logical endpoint of capitalism. But you know, maybe that's not deep enough analysis for you. Maybe you need to see a deep dive on the truly important issues. And by truly important issues, I mean people being sexually attracted to Waluigi. Full disclosure, I am personally asexual, which you can probably tell from the fact that someone who talks about Fire Emblem Death Battle as much as I do probably isn't having sex. I bring this up because I'm probably not the best judge of this topic, but fuck you, I'm going to look into it anyway. In essence, I've noticed a common trend among the meme culture surrounding Waluigi, people thirsting for him. At a glance, you can write this off as ironic, as many Waluigi thirst memes seem to take that direction. But after researching this video for long enough, I started to notice that there was more to this. There's plenty of sexy Waluigi fan art that's too common and too high effort to be just a joke. In 2021, many people commented on how seductive a newly revealed official Waluigi render seemed to be. Waluigi is also listed on the official Tumblr Sexy Man wiki, although I take issue with this because it's offensive to say that he's only a sexy man for one website. And most damning of all, I discovered the Waluigi Thirst TikTok community, so at that point, the existence of unironic thirst for Waluigi became impossible to deny. But this begs a question: why? Why thirst for Waluigi, a character who's specifically meant to be weird and unappealing in particular? Well, in a weird way, the attempts on Nintendo's part to make Waluigi seem unappealing have paradoxically made him way more attractive to some people. When someone tells you that you can't have something, you're just gonna want it even more. Thirsting for Waluigi represents a deep rejection of societal norms and a rejection of the unrealistic beauty standards that we are all shackled by. Loving Waluigi is actually loving oneself and any person who is able to be their true selves, no matter what society says about them. Or maybe I'm just looking way too deep into this. Who knows? Every once in a while, I'll see a post pop up about how the character you choose in Mario Kart or Mario Party says a lot about you as a person, at least in comparison to something like Smash, where there's a clear and tangible playstyle for any given character.
For example,
if you consciously decide to select Mario in a Mario Kart, Mario Party, or Mario Sports game, then I'm just going to assume that you are being a pure evil with no empathy or remorse for any other human being. However, when we get to Waluigi, something interesting begins to surface. Based on everything in this video so far, you can probably gather that he's the character of choice for the memer. But because Waluigi is a character whose role and characterization are both incredibly vague, it is incredibly easy to project aspects of yourself onto him. In this video, I've discussed a lot of drastically different interpretations of Waluigi that say drastically different things about the people who created them. Marxist Waluigi fans, musically talented Waluigi fans, Waluigi fans who need him carnally. These interpretations of Waluigi are all... You know, I can't do this anymore. I can't continue this video any longer without addressing the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the worst thing in the history of anything ever. You know, Smash Speculation didn't have to be the abomination that it is now. I actually do love the theory crafting that goes into coming up with how a character would play in Smash. It's a fun challenge to try to see how the aspects that made a given game or character so well liked to begin with could be translated to Smash. I've personally spent a lot of time thinking about how characters I like would reflect their home series in Smash. But for every one person who engages with Smash Speculation in a healthy and creative way, there's like 10 people who legitimately treat getting a character into a party game as if it's some profound political praxis. If you want a reason for why that's the case, I'd probably chalk it up to corporate hype culture being as toxic as it is. It encourages this never-ending downward spiral where people keep setting unrealistic expectations for a new release only to inevitably throw a temper tantrum when said expectations aren't met. And the embodiment of the problems with Smash Speculation is the campaign to get Waluigi into Smash Ultimate. During Nintendo's 2018 E3 Direct, the iconic Everyone is Here trailer was dropped. But there was one small detail from that trailer that caught people's attention. Waluigi was shown off as an assist trophy, meaning that his chances of being a playable fighter were dead and buried. Adding fuel to the fire was the fact that he was used to demonstrate assist trophies being KO'able now. So naturally, the people who made their whole personality around getting a fictional character into a party game had a meltdown. It started out as harmless tongue-in-cheek jokes, but after a short period of time it spiraled out of control. The Justice for Waluigi hashtag was being spammed, and people were legitimately trying to get Waluigi into the game when it was clear there was no way to fully program in the short period of time before release. And after the release of the August 8th Direct, Waluigi fans saw a pair of purple and yellow chairs and legitimately thought they were hinting at Waluigi being in the game. But the worst of it was in Sakurai's replies. You see, there are two horrible mistakes you can make on Twitter. Using Twitter in general and checking Sakurai's replies. You are going to find three types of people. People with weird parasocial relationships for Sakurai, people who are the least funny human beings imaginable, and people who are begging him to add a character in Smash. A handful of Waluigi supporters somehow managed to combine all three of these things and made posts so bad that they were blocked by Sakurai. With how bad the average unblocked Sakurai reply is, a post that's bad enough to get blocked by Sakurai is an accomplishment, albeit for the wrong reasons. Now this is a small percentage of the people who like Waluigi or even want him in Smash, but this small percentage was so bad that they attracted lots of attention, caused news coverage on the situation, and permanently ruined Waluigi's good name. So instead of giving a stand-on conclusion, I've decided to devote the end of the video to clearing Waluigi's name. I have created my very own SRPG Studio Waluigi game called Waluigi and Smash Speculation, which is short enough that you can realistically beat it in a couple minutes and details a very profound Waluigi redemption arc. The link to this cinematic masterpiece is in the description and pinned comment. Get to work on playing it, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the way out. Or don't play it. I'm not your boss.